Hi, Martin. I'm Lisa, in training with Linda tonight.
You have my commiserations.
Yes, thank you.
I know working those things can be like.
Lisa.
Yes, say some prayers for all obstacles to be cleared. Okay. Hi, Rainey.
Hi again, Rainey. And I'm going to go with a wild guess and say that's Paul and not Carmen on the other one.
Hi, Kenny. Hi, Suzanne. I'm in training tonight with Linda, so bear with me.
And then since Don's here now, you can go ahead and spotlight his block. And so, yeah, see if you can just touch it. Usually I'm using this. So. Okay. Yeah, and then, yeah, you got to go to those three dots. Hit over towards the left-hand side of the mouse. And then spotlight for everyone. Uh-oh. The table broke. Oh, did it? Oh, no. There's another one. So before we get started officially, just want to let you know that Don is going to wrap it all up this evening, so we will not have class next week.
Get a break.
So we'll have a pretty decent break for summer in July, and then we'll start back up. Hang on, I actually forgot to check this. We'll start back up. Hang on.
Thank you. Are you ready?
Hang on, I was checking to see when the next module's starting. All right, we will break after tonight, and then we'll come back the first Monday of August, which is Monday, August 5th, and that'll be Module 11, Transforming Problems, and that will be with Robbie. So mark your calendars to come back for Discovering Buddhism on Monday, August 5th. Okay.
All right.
We're ready.
Ready to go? Let's go ahead and do the prayers. If you have the book, it's on page 34. Most of you have done the prayers before. All right, so so we do these prayers to set the tone for the practice. To our direction, so to speak. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. Declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. Imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Radhamandala Kamya Yatayami. Okay, so we'll start out with doing some mindfulness meditation practice. Just sit up straight, like your vertebrae. I don't know how you get a vertebrae to be stacked one on top of the other like checkers, but that's in the scripture. It says that your spine's supposed to be that way. So anyway, you're sitting up straight, and if you're in a chair, you're not leaning back, but up straight. Your hands one on top of the other, thumbs touching at the level of the navel, shoulders back and down, chin tucked in, tongue at the roof of the mouth. The eyes can be slightly open or slightly closed. And you just kind of settle into a comfortable posture, one that potentially you could sit in for hours if you had to. And a key part of meditation is just get comfortable and then just be perfectly still. Don't move, because that just distracts the mind. We'll start out by taking some deep breaths. And we're going to do this breathing a little different. It's sort of yoga breathing, where you breathe in to the count of 4, then you hold your breath for the count of 7, and you exhale through your pursed lips to the count of 8. So we'll do that for a few minutes. So breathing in like 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4 in, hold it for 7, exhale for 8. Now let your breath be natural and simply follow the breath. Now, open your eyes while you're meditating and let your eyes settle on an object in front of you. And think, well, there's something out there, right? We're seeing the object. And then we're looking, but what's looking? We say, I'm looking, but it's really simply the eyes looking, right? Light's coming in, hitting the retina, going back to the brain, registering, getting interpreted. For just a moment, ask yourself, who's looking? Where is this looker? There's an object and there's a subject. Where is the looker? This I that seems to be looking. And then maybe we hear some sounds. And that's the object. The subject is our ear, that and all that goes into the process of hearing. But we say, I am hearing. When in fact, what's happening is simply we're hearing. We're seeing, we're hearing, just seeing. We sit in the chair. We have a tactile experience of sitting. A sensory experience of sitting, where we think, I am sitting. And the same goes for taste and even thoughts. We think, I am thinking. Where is this thinker? This sense of, this real reified sense of a thinker, a sitter, a meditator, a man, a woman, whatever, all the things that we identify with. Where is this I? Seems so real. Just look and see if you can find it. And then bring your attention back to the experience of breathing and let your awareness completely envelop the experience of the entire inhalation and exhalation, this whole process of breathing. Now imagine yourself in front of you, like a holographic image of yourself. in front of you. And this is sort of relevant to Tantra in a way, because Tantra is highly visual. I mean, that's a big part of Tantric practice, is visualization. And yet when what we want to imagine is ourselves in front of us, but not like a statue or a picture or even a hologram, but like in, literally, ourselves in front of us, living, breathing, experiencing life, everything this involves, everything that we experience as human beings. Imagine yourself in front of you. We're going to do 9-round breathing, and we're going to breathe. And you can actually, close one nostril if it helps you do it this way. But you're going to breathe out through the right nostril, white light, symbolizing all your roots of virtue, positive, everything that you have to give. You're giving, the self that's sitting in the room now. Imagine that you're sending out this white light through your right nostril as you exhale. It doesn't have to go in one breath. It can go in multiple breaths. And it enters the left nostril of the you in front of you. You can imagine the you in front of you as big as you want. Many times in Tantra, and particularly, imagine the deity at the level of the forehead, a body length in front, and as big as possible. But just imagine yourself in front. And as you breathe, again, the light goes out in the right nostril, fills the you in front of you with joy and happiness and freedom and all the good things that life has to offer. Everything that you want and need. You're completely filled with this healing, joyful, blissful white light. And then the you in front of you is going to exhale all of your negativities, all of the things that are the suffering that you're going to experience, not so much from the past, more interested in the present moment, today, now, and the things that are coming, the suffering that you will experience in the future. You can imagine all of that as the you in front of you exhales that through your right nostril, and that enters that in the form of black smoke and enters your left nostril. And again, it can come in multiple breaths. As you inhale, you'll inhale this black smoke. It comes down to your heart, destroys your self-cherishing, egocentric, self-grasping, negative mind. Like in the scripture, they talk a little bit like a rocky mountain, and inside that rocky mountain is this self-cherishing selfishness. Completely destroys that. And then again, your body fills up with light, and blissful white light, because you've destroyed your ego. And that white light, you offer that goes out through the right nostril. Again, symbolizing all that's good. And you're giving, and it goes in your left nostril in front of you, and then fills you with blissful light. Then all the negativity goes out your right nostril, entering your left nostril. That negativity destroying your self-cherishing, egocentric self. And so we do that. Again, this helps to really cultivate love and compassion, because this is somebody that we really want to work with, which is ourselves. We always want to start Tong Lin with ourselves. So we're giving. This act of giving is sort of, may I be happy and have the causes of happiness. It's not enough to be happy. You have to have the causes of happiness, because that's what the future is dependent upon. Happiness now is just too ephemeral. We want the causes of happiness. So We imagine as we breathe out, we're giving ourselves happiness as the cause of happiness. And as we breathe in our suffering, again, that's compassion. May I be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. We bring that into ourselves. So we do that 3 times. You go out through the left nostril and out through the right and in through the left 3 times. Then out the left and in the right 3 times. And then out both nostrils and breathe back in 3 times. So you do that, we'll do 9 rounds. And it's more important to be precise about the visualization than to get the breathing just right. But if you can keep, it's easy to get lost even in 9-round breathing, but sometimes it's helpful to occlude the opposite nostril with, you can use your index finger as you breathe out. Now we're gonna do a brief analytical meditation on the three principles of the path. Bodhicitta is one of them. These are for anybody who aspires to. Well, anyway, this is the one of the ways that they package the Dharma, the three principles of the path. Sometimes it's the lower scope, middle scope, and upper scope, three scopes. But anyway, three principles of the path are renunciation, or this determination to be free, and then bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness. So we'll just touch on this a little bit, give you a sense of what these are things that are good to do on a daily basis. Obviously, not everybody. Every day we, don't have the time. Some of us don't. Some of us do. But it's a good practice to get in the habit of doing. Just to touch on these points. So, how do you develop renunciation? What is renunciation? Again, it's sometimes really called self-compassion, and it's based on, a genuine appreciation of the mess that we're in, that we suffer. First noble truth, the truth of dukkha, suffering. We realize, until we realize that we're suffering, we have no incentive to be free. We're like somebody in jail who thinks they're in a pleasure garden. So there's no desire to be free. Whereas when we realize that we're like in a prison, it's almost like our hair's on fire. We can't wait to get out. And so until we get a real appreciation for the fact that we are imprisoned by our delusions and our ignorance, and that the future is really going to look a lot like the past, maybe worse. So, there are four meditations, four things to touch on. One is precious human rebirth, realizing sometimes I talk about the 10 freedoms and the 8 endowments or something, combinations of those, but things that we have going, that we're free of. Like we're free of living in an irreligious country where we're free to practice the Dharma. We're free from, being, demented or having some, serious birth defect, not being able to hear, not being able to when we hear the Dharma, not having any interest at all in spiritual practice, we're free of that. And we're endowed with, this amazing, rare opportunity to practice the Dharma. There's, how many places, at least in this country, are there Tibetan Buddhist Dharma centers? I mean, almost none. And we have qualified teachers here. We have qualified teachers that visit. It's amazing, opportunity, and we have, our faculties are intact. We can hear, we can see, we can listen and reason for ourselves. We have an interest in practicing the Dharma. We have the time to practice it, the leisure. We live at a time when the Buddha's descended, the Buddha's taught, and they're living exemplars of the teachings, beings that have taken the teachings in an unbroken lineage from the time of the Buddha up until the present day and realized the meaning of the teachings. So pretty amazing. The freedoms and endowments that we have. That's the first one. Sort of feeling, really grateful, really happy for ourselves that this is a golden opportunity. It's almost like we're going through time endless time, and we're almost we're in this little slither of, it's like a time warp, and we're in this moment which doesn't last very long, and now everything's come together for us to be able to find the happiness that we want and be free of the suffering that we don't want. Everything's here. We just have to take advantage of it. And then we think about death is definite, so I must practice the Dharma. Everybody dies. Even though we live like we're going to live forever, we believe, if we do any analysis at all, we realize, oh yeah, I'm going to die, but we don't act that way. We don't live that way, and in our heart of hearts, we don't even believe it. Not going to happen to me. There's some little instinctive part of ourselves that thinks we're permanent, when in fact, we're anything but. So death is definite. So what the conclusion is, I must practice the Dharma. The time of death could be any moment. You breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out, and you don't breathe in again. That's called death. With each tick of the clock, each movement of the second hand, brings us closer to the time of our death. We don't know when that's going to be. Just because you're younger doesn't mean you won't die tonight or sometime soon. And just because you're older doesn't mean you won't live longer. But eventually, it's going to happen to everybody. And we don't know when that'll be. So every second is precious. So the conclusion is that the time of death is indeterminate. So we must practice the Dharma, and we must do it immediately. We must do it now. Then we think about, what's beneficial at the time of death? It's not our 401k and our nice house, our beach cottage, and our vacations, and the bucket list that we live to check off the boxes for, all of that stuff that we kind of think is so important, so important, is of no benefit at the time of death. Your family, your beautiful family, your beautiful friends, all your money, all your stuff, all those things that you've accumulated, your toys, all of them no use at the time of death. The only currency that you can spend at the time of death is spiritual currency, the imprints that you placed on your mental continuum. So then we determine, okay, I must practice the Dharma purely. So death is definite, time of death is indefinite. And the only thing of benefit at the time of death is really Dharma practice, our ability to practice the Dharma during our lives, and in particular at the time of our death. Be able to bring to mind, compassion, and practice Tonglen, even as we take our last breaths, taking on the suffering of all the beings that are dying at that moment, imagining that we're taking on their suffering in our heart, and then giving them a fearless, joyful, a lot of freedom as they die, as they live, as they take their last breath and exhale. So we've got precious human rebirth and death and impermanence. So those are the two first contemplations. When we do those well, it turns our mind away from just seeking the happiness of this life. The other two contemplations have to do with karma and dukkha. All right, so what are the 4 laws of karma? These are all things that you've studied. Karma is definite, right? You don't plant a tobacco seed in North Carolina and expect a corn plant to come up. We expect a tobacco plant to come up. Similarly, positive actions, which is basically non-harming others. It's much bigger than that. It's actually it's not only avoiding, like you're in a situation where you could kill someone or something, some being, some sentient being, and you choose not to. That's the virtue, in the 10 non-virtuous actions. That's practicing restraining from killing. But then the opposite, the flip side of that is to save lives. So these are the things that plant the seeds that result in happiness. And one of the ways we determine whether an action is positive or negative in Buddhism is the end result. If it leads to happiness, it was virtuous. Not just temporary happiness, because a lot of things can bring us temporary pleasure and happiness, but in the long run can put us could end up in jail, right? So we're talking about not only, really talking about the long run, the end game. So that virtuous actions always result in happiness, non-virtuous actions always end up causing suffering. And in the moment, how do we know? Because these karmas are going to ripen lifetimes from now. How do we know? Here's how we know. We know ourselves well enough to know that actions motivated by non-attachment, non-hatred, and non-ignorance will always result in happiness. And actions motivated by greed and hatred and ignorance will always result in suffering. So we have to know our mind really well. We have to know our intention really well. And the second law is that karma is expandable. Just like a little seed grows into this, 50-ton oak tree, this little tiny seed. Karma is the same way. Every tiny action, be it negative or leading to suffering, or positive, leading to happiness, every tiny action will ripen. It'll grow exponentially and eventually ripen into happiness or suffering. So important to purify our karma at the end of the day as much as we can, to take the time to clean up our karmic messes, and to rejoice when we've done something positive. So karma is expandable. Then we cannot experience a result without creating the cause. So that's basically saying everything that we've ever experienced from the beginning of beginningless time up until right now is the fruit of our former actions. And the future is in our hands. We can't experience a result without creating the cause. If we want the cause, if we want liberation and freedom and the enlightenment of a Buddha, we have to create the causes. We cannot experience a result without creating the causes. So in a real sense, we are totally accountable for everything that's ever happened to us from the beginning of beginningless time until now, according to this law of karma. It's an impersonal law. It's like gravity. It's not punished. There's no God who's punishing anybody. It's just, when you do this, you get that. It's just like that. It's just, when you practice virtue, you get happiness. When you practice non-virtue, you suffer. It's just that simple, but it's hard. It's hard for us to think that I'm responsible for everything, because I can point out the situations where maybe I was a victim. But according to the laws of karma, it's not helpful. Not helpful. And to view the world from a point of view of being totally responsible for everything is very powerful, because we are the creator of our future. We can shape it with our actions, our choices. And then the last law is that karma is never lost. The seeds of karma are never lost. So positive, these positive and negative karmic seeds are growing and expanding, and they're never lost. The karmic seeds are in our mental continuum from, the last lifetime, and then the one before that, and then the billion, the tens of thousands of ones before that. All of these karmic seeds, many, many karmic seeds are in our garden, our karmic garden, waiting for the cooperative causes to ripen. They're never lost, but there's two things we can do. Actually, we can purify karma. We can purify our negative karma, and we can destroy our positive karma with strong negative actions. Like, for example, anger, really rage and anger, wishing to harm others with that kind of mentality can destroy our positive karma. So generally we think of karma as never lost. So we want to, we obviously want to practice virtue and avoid non-virtue and purify negative karma as much as we can. So then the next contemplation has to do with the human, the first noble truth, dukkha. So we have the suffering. In Buddhism we talk about the suffering of pain, change, and pervasive suffering. So pain is obvious suffering. Birth, sickness, aging, death, old age and aging, death, and then we have this, as Lama Zopa says, the worst suffering of all is that we're never satisfied. We think we're the only one that's never satisfied. No, none of us are ever satisfied. Because we can never get enough money. We can never be cute enough, young enough, smart enough. But there's always a new level that we have to keep striving for. And then we say meeting leads to parting. It's true. Every relationship will end. Meeting leads to parting. High position leads to low position. All composite things must separate into their parts. We have to be born again and again and again into samsara, into this cycle of uncontrolled causation called samsara, and suffer again and again and again, and then die again and again and again. Not being negative, just stating the obvious. Now maybe you don't buy the rebirth part, but the rest of it's pretty obvious. We meet with situations again and again and again that we don't want to meet with. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to all of us. So that's the suffering of pain. Easy to see. Depression, anxiety, stressed out, all of these things that we talked about. Easy to see. Suffering of change, not so easy to see. In fact, everything that we now consider to be pleasurable, everything from drugs, sex, and rock and roll, to partying, to going on beautiful vacations, and you name it. It can all bring us, not to say that pleasure isn't pleasure, and enjoying a nice sunset or being with our lover is not some kind of pleasurable experience, but it doesn't last. It's impermanent. It's like drinking salt water. It never, again, we're getting back to this thing of never satisfied. It's like it never lasts. Nothing lasts. We're never satisfied. It all changes. If eating a good meal, that meal is so good. But if you keep eating, if eating a good meal were the cause of happiness, then you could just keep eating and you just get happier and happier and happier. But no, sooner or later you got to quit because you're getting sick, eating too much. It's that way for every pleasurable experience we have that we now label, happiness or the causes of happiness or things we strive for. From the Buddhist perspective, they're just another form of dukkha. Not that pleasure isn't pleasure, but it doesn't give us satisfaction and lasting peace, which is what we really want. And then the third kind of dukkha is this thing called pervasive dukkha, which is the wheel of life that, I think we've had a class on it, but we're caught in this uncontrolled cycle of death and rebirth caused by ignorance, karma, the senses, clinging and grasping, sickness, old age, and death. We just go around and around and around in this wheel called samsara. Life after life. We are a magnet. We're a magnet for suffering. They say one way to think about samsara is it's like you got this burn on your whole form, like you just burned all the skin off your form, and it's really painful. And you have some cool water, some tepid water, and you pour it on that sore, and as you pour it on that burn, you go, God, it feels so good, such a relief. But then all of a sudden the burning comes back. And you pour some more water on it and you feel a little bit better. But then the underlying basis of the problem is this burn. You can only get temporary relief from the pain. Because that's what we're caught in, that type of existence. So again, we look at karma, actions have results. And we talk about dukkha, the three kinds of dukkha, pain, change, and pervasive suffering. This turns our mind away from the happiness of future lives. Thinking about karma and dukkha, we turn our mind away from just the happiness of some future life, like, well, I want to go to heaven in the next life, or I want to have a better life, I want to be a god in the God realm, or whatever. But we look 24/7, most of the karma we're creating is negative. So we got to get enlightened, or we got to put our efforts in the moment now, this day, now, right now. So, those 4 meditations, precious human rebirth, right? Death and impermanence, karma, dukkha. We look at all those together and we go, I want to get out of here. I want to be free. I want to have compassion enough for myself to make it the determination to be free. Well, that's called renunciation. It's the first step on the spiritual practice, on the path, and without it, really can't go anywhere. It's like the booster for the rocket. It's the beginning of the spiritual path. And then we do bodhicitta, and we've done this week after week. I gave you a handout a minute ago. You can read that. That's everything that's important in this class is there for the most part. But just to touch on the key points, remember equanimity. We remember the friend, the stranger, and the enemy. The person that we cling to is the friend. The person, we project friend, right, on this person. And we project on the stranger, we feel pretty indifferent toward that being. And then the enemy, or the person we feel aversion toward over here, we just want to get away from them. We don't like them. And so our mind right now is very biased. And so for what we need, if we want to get enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings, that means we can't exclude the category of beings that are in the realm of enemies or people that we feel aversion toward, or strangers. It's easy to feel compassion for the ones that we are near and dear to when they suffer. and wanting to be beneficial to them. But we're really trying to develop an attitude of universal regard for universal living beings, realizing that in every lifetime they've all been family, and they all want to be happy and don't want to suffer, just like me, right? So we develop a sense of equanimity, and then we meditate on how all beings have been our mother. You can substitute family, whatever you want to substitute in there. The closest relationship you have, for most beings, it's a mother. So we try to remember how all living beings, in our countless lifetimes, each time we had to have a mother, all have been our mother. And again, this takes some faith in rebirth and playing, as Jeffrey Hopkins calls it, let's play the rebirth game, and be open to this possibility of sort of creatively aligned with this possibility, even though it sounds sort of outlandish. Let's practice with this, because we can change our mind. We can, through the force of familiarity, we can change our mind. So we began to see all sentient beings as having been family, so we're close to them. They will remember their kindness. Not only the kindness of the mother of this lifetime, and all living beings have been that kind to us, but we also remember the kindness of just everybody in general. I mean, you think about the air conditioner that's running now. How many millions of people are responsible for us being able to have air conditioning in this place, and these beautiful statues, and the people that built them, and how they got here, and 2,000 years of 2,500 years of tradition, and what they symbolize, and the teachings. I mean, everything we have is dependent. All of our present life's pleasures and happinesses are dependent on the kindness of others. So we wish to repay that kindness. And then we recollect the equality of self and others, that we're all equal. We all equally want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. I want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. And the universal living beings, all in human form, they scream, I want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. Well, I'm one. Others, it seems it's singular, but it's infinite. Other is infinite. Infinite other living beings want exactly what I want. We're all equal in wanting happiness and not wanting to suffer. Very important to see that. And then we think about the faults of self-cherishing selfishness. How all the suffering from the beginning of beginningless time until now is the cause of one demon. This self-cherishing, selfish mind that dwells sort of in our heart. Seems like a friend, like a protector sometimes, doesn't it? Our egocentric sense of I seems like it protects us, like it's a friend, but it's our biggest enemy. It causes us to kill and steal and sexual misconduct and lying and slander and harsh and frivolous talk and greed and hatred and ignorance and the other 84,000 delusions, all predicated on this self-cherishing, selfish mind, which causes, as they say in the scripture, all the suffering from the beginning of beginningless time until right now is the cause of one demon, this self-cherishing, selfish mind. Wow, that's pretty bad. And we thought it was our friend. And then the cause of happiness is cherishing others. Cause of happiness, cherishing others. And as Lama Yeshe used to say, check it out, dear. He said, check it out for yourself. See if it makes sense. See if it's true. And if it's true for you, then you should adopt it. If it's not true for you, you shouldn't. And then we do the exchanging of self-cherishing with cherishing others. So up until now, 24/7, we've just cherished this one. Now all of a sudden we're doing a little Aikido move here. We're not going to, from now on, we're going to cherish others. So we could actually take on the label of others. Like, okay, I'm going to cherish others. I'm not going to forget about others no matter what I do. Whether I'm getting ready to go to work or with people, always thinking of cherishing others. So we're exchanging, not exchanging me with them, but I'm exchanging the attitude of self-cherishing for the attitude of cherishing others. That's our come from now on in our life, is to cherish others. And then the next step would be to practice Tonglen, which we've already done when we did the 9-round breathing, where we imagine, again, some of the scriptures say that you should practice taking on the suffering first, from the beings. You start out with yourself, and then with your best friend, and then your next best friend, and then maybe people you feel neutral toward, and then gradually work up to just somebody you feel aversion toward until you got full-blown enemies, people you really dislike. You do it like that, and then you do all the beings in the different realms of samsara. You can work with them like that, practicing Tonglen, imagining that you're taking on their suffering, destroying your self-cherishing selfishness, the action of compassion. May you be free of suffering and its causes. I'm taking it on me. I'm taking your suffering and its causes into my heart, destroying my selfishness, and filling me with blissful white light. And I'm going to give you exactly what you want and need in the form of white light. And I breathe out that white light, and you get what you want and need. And all of my roots of virtue, all of my happiness, I'm giving it all away now to you. Everything you want and need. And you have happiness and its causes. And then we breathe in, again, compassion. We breathe in the suffering and its causes, destroying our self-cherishing. And we breathe out happiness and its causes in the form of white light, Tonglen. And then we come to this point where we have this, sometimes we call it the supreme wish, but lots of different ways to say it. The messianic vow, as Bob Thurman calls it. But basically the determination to free all beings from suffering by myself alone. It is my responsibility. It's my responsibility. So it's a heroic attitude. Crazy, really crazy. When you think about it, it's absurd. Because if it could have happened, it would have happened. And it hasn't happened. So why are we bothering? Because this is the attitude of a bodhisattva, a spiritual warrior, somebody who's going to become a Buddha, has to develop this attitude of personal responsibility to eliminate the suffering of all beings and establish them in happiness by myself alone. That's the attitude of a spiritual warrior, a bodhisattva. And then the next contemplation is generating bodhicitta, realizing that the only person, the only being that could do that would be a Buddha, someone who had perfect power, perfect compassion, perfect loving kindness, perfect skillful means, knowing exactly what to say and do in any moment to help that person, that being that we're dealing with, transform their mind. Knowing exactly what to say and do. The only being that could do that would be an enlightened being. If we want to lead somebody to enlightenment, we have to have done it ourselves. So based on, again, this is not sentimentality here, but this is great love, which excludes nobody, and great compassion, which excludes nobody. Based on great love and great compassion, we make the determination to become a Buddha in order to liberate, in order to free all sentient beings. This altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. It's something that, you just can't just drop into this attitude. You can we always say, well, spend a couple of seconds thinking, generating the altruistic intentions. But it's not going to work, because you've got to go through these steps to these awarenesses, you might say, to get to where you can generate feeling for these words. These words are powerful. May I become a Buddha in order to liberate all sentient beings from suffering and establish in them in the supreme happiness of enlightenment. By myself alone, it's my job. I'm not giving it to anybody else. I must become a Buddha to liberate universal living beings and establish them in the state of supreme enlightenment. So this is conventional bodhicitta. The ultimate bodhicitta has to do with emptiness, right? And we talk about emptiness all the time. We've had classes on it. You've had classes on it, I'm sure. Or if not, you will. But emptiness is just, it's just the absence of what we project on all our experiences. We project inherent, true, real existence on everything we see, feel, touch, smell, taste, you name it, and think. Everything seems so real and so concrete, and it's not. It's merely labeled. We go, I'm sitting and I'm meditating. Where's the I? Well, yeah, there is a mind here and a body here. And on that we label I. And that's all there is the merely label I. But what do? Ignorance projects a false sense of I, a reified sense of I, and clings to it. It's called I-grasping ignorance. We cling to that I as being real and solid and inherently existent. And if anybody offends me, I get angry. And if I see something I want, I grasp it, I cling to it. I. It runs our lives, it destroys our lives, and it's a complete fiction. It's ignorance. We do exist, but just conventionally, just nominally. Just nominally. We call it, the merely labeled I, which exists in dependence upon a mind and a body. Right? And we, the reasonings that we use, we say, that, well, if there were, when we start looking at this inherent existence, well, how do we exist? Well, we exist in dependence upon causes and conditions, right? Sperm and egg and education and food and family and the environment, whatever, everything exists. But more importantly, the karma goes much deeper than that, doesn't it? So we exist in dependence upon karmic causes and conditions. We exist in dependence upon parts. We have billions of atoms here, but we've got a head, arms, legs, fingers, all of that stuff. We have parts. And we exist in dependence upon a mind that labels I. And that's it. That's how we exist. But that's not how we perceive ourselves to exist. We perceive ourselves to exist in this reified, inherently existent, unrealistic way, which gets us into all the trouble. We're drawn into all kinds of problems because of our misperception of how we exist and who we are. All the suffering comes from this misperception of I. And until we can see through this sort of illusion of self and see how we truly exist, we're trapped. We'll never get free. So that's the third of the three principles of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Kind of let that sink in for a minute. We start out with compassion for ourselves, and that's renunciation. That realizing that we're suffering and that there is no way out until we develop our mind. We have to eliminate our faults and cultivate positive qualities to be free. So this determination to be free of suffering, realizing that we are. And then bodhicitta is based on compassion. It's really based on compassion for others. But all of our wishes for ourselves and our happiness are the byproduct of practicing and living as a bodhisattva would. In other words, practicing the 6 perfections of a bodhisattva. Where we talked about those. We talked about, again, the perfection of generosity. All these things are practiced with bodhicitta motivation. But there's generosity and ethics and patience, and there's enthusiastic effort, and there's concentration and wisdom. And we practice all of these 6 perfections with bodhicitta motivation. That's how we become a Buddha. And then there are vows that people can take. There's like 18 root and 46 secondary vows that actually help us practice the 6 perfections, which should be the essence of any sincere Mahayana practitioner would be to take the bodhisattva vows and to as much as possible use those vows as a guideline for one's life. So that's compassion for others, and then emptiness is it seems like, well, what's emptiness have to do with compassion? And we asked this question. We brought it up several times in this class, and I'm going to see if I can find the answer. So a good friend of mine, I say a good friend, we're friends. I lived across the hallway from him for 3 months. We got to be pretty good friends. And he just died recently. His name Jeffrey Hopkins. Maybe you've heard of this is a book he wrote called Cultivating Compassion. But when the Dalai Lama first came to this country, Jeffrey, he started the Buddhist Studies program at UVA, and I bet he's written or edited 20 or more books. His sort of seminal book is called Meditations on Emptiness, and he got pretty much all those teachings directly from His Holiness. But so one of Jeffrey's comments about how emptiness has to do with, I can't find I wanted to read it, but well, maybe this is it. How does a perspective on the nature of appearance serve to generate compassion? If you see that sentient beings perceive themselves one way, yet exist another way, and thereby are drawn into suffering in order to satisfy this kind of self, when there is no such self, not that there's no self, if you see that at least certain desires and certain hatreds are predicated on this kind of self, and that people are leading themselves into trouble because of it, you naturally generate compassion for them if you have a sense of closeness with them, a sense of empathy. Through realizing I want happiness and don't want suffering, and each of these people want happiness and don't want suffering, how horrible it is that what they want and what they're engaged in are at cross purposes. That they want happiness and don't want suffering, but are engaging in causes of suffering which take them further away from happiness. Wouldn't you find it moving? So he's talking about emptiness. He's talking about how we suffer, so because we don't see things to exist the way they are. We think we inherently exist. We think objects out there inherently exist. And so if something is, we talk about how we're addicted to delicious. It's how we want. If something's delicious, we want it. And we're drawn to it, and we cling to it, to the concept. And then if we get the object, we even cling to that. And it never satisfies us. It's always changing. When we're clinging in a world that's always changing, there's a rub there. There's a big rub. There's a problem. Because it's changing right in front of our eyes and we don't see it. We're going to be dissatisfied. We're never going to be satisfied clinging in a world that's changing. And so the Buddha's, what we're saying is, what Jeffrey's saying is that because living beings, sentient beings, see things one way, but they exist another, they're bound, and because of this misperception of reality, we're all drawn into an enormous amount of suffering, and how sad that is. And they're just like me. They want to be happy, and they don't want to suffer, but they are suffering. And wouldn't that make you feel compassion if you felt close to them particularly? You have to feel close. You have to feel connected. Remember? We talked about that. If you feel disconnected, you don't care about other people's suffering. You only care about the people that are near and dear to you. But if you have this sense of universal compassion, you do care. And so that's how a realization of emptiness is crucial to really having the deepest, most profound compassion, which is the heart of Tibetan Buddhism. Has anybody heard of Jeffrey Hopkins? He came here, Jeffrey came here, I think just one time. This is before we were actually a center. We were just a Dharma study group. And he came and taught. And he amazing teacher. And then, anyway, just a great guy, and such a loss, because he was, if you read something by Jeffrey, you know that it's the real deal, because he's the real deal, and I visited his house in Virginia one time, and he had a monk living with him from one of the major monasteries in India, and he was translating a book, and he double-checked everything. If he translated, he double-checked it with the monk. He was a scholar. He double-checked everything. So when he writes something, you can pretty much count on it being Literally, he's channeling the Dalai Lama. Channeling the Buddha. In the last few minutes, I want to read something. So this is from Jeffrey. Yeah. This is from Jeffrey, his book. Compassion is the heartfelt wish that sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. The Indian scholar Chandrakirti, one of the most renowned sources of Buddhist practice in Tibet, praised compassion as being important throughout spiritual practice. Now when we do the meditation on generating bodhicitta, at what point do you feel compassion? I mean, when you start thinking, there are different steps. For example, if you, in the meditation on 7 cause and effect, there is one of the meditations in there after, you start out, seeing everybody as being mom and remembering their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness and great love, and then there's great compassion is one of the meditations, okay? And the exchanging self with others, really, Tong Lin is the way we do it. So we talk about compassion, but it's really, really the heart of Tibetan Buddhism. It's what distinguishes, Mahayana Buddha Dharma from any other Dharma. So this is Chandrakirti, this great Buddhist scholar. He's saying mercy, which his word translated as compassion. Mercy alone is seen as the seed of a conqueror's, as a Buddha's, rich harvest, as water for development, as a ripened state of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the start, I praise compassion. So he's beginning a text, and he's praising compassion. He said, mercy and compassion are the same. Chandrakirti praises compassion because it is the root cause of Buddhas. When he praises the cause, he implicitly is praising the effect, but he is simply emphasizing that Buddhahood arises from compassion. Compassion is called a seed because it is the beginning of the path for bodhisattvas, those dedicated to becoming fully enlightened for the benefit of all beings. Bodhisattvas are distinguished from Buddhist practitioners in that they have great compassion. So what's great compassion? It means it excludes no one. Universal compassion. And that they themselves will free all sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. They also have great love. This wish that others can have happiness and the causes of happiness. And that they themselves will join all sentient beings with happiness and the causes of happiness. The seed is what begins the harvest. Without the seed, one cannot have the fruit. The source of Buddhahood is compassion. Though wisdom is required for the attainment of Buddhahood. We talk about the 2 wings of the bird of enlightenment, wisdom and compassion. So we're saying wisdom's important. He's saying, though wisdom is required for the attainment of Buddhahood, unshakable compassion is the differentiating factor. Other types of practitioners must also understand the final nature of reality in order to attain their respective but lower types of enlightenment. And I'm not going to go into that. Thus, compassion alone is the seed of Buddhahood. So even people who practice the Hinayana or Theravada or even Hinduism, every religion, compassion is really important. But what we're talking about here is great compassion and great loving kindness that excludes no one. Compassion is also like the water that rains down and grows the potential harvest once the seed has been planted. Compassion, this is important too, compassion moistens the mental continuum. Through the continued practice of compassion, the bodhisattva's progress advances. In the state of Buddhahood, it is ripened. It is like matured fruit for enjoyment by others, and that only fully mature compassion causes enlightened beings to appear to others to help them in whatever form is suitable to their needs. What would it be like for you or somebody else like you to have that kind of attitude? And then he goes on to talk about the 3 types of compassion, but you'll have to buy the book. This is about 10 years old. So we're going to wrap it up. We have, we could do another week or 2, but we don't. I think this is a good time because I've said everything multiple times. Repetition's not a bad thing. All right, so created a lot of good merit, I would say. At least I feel like we have. We planted, and as Rabina would say, our garden. We planted a lot of seeds. Now it's up to us to make sure that those seeds don't die in this dreadful North Carolina heat, and where we haven't had any rain. We finally got some, right? But we need to fertilize and water and nurture these seeds so they can ripen in something really spectacular, like us being able to help others, right? I mean, that's the purpose of life. Lama Zopa, real simple. Purpose of life is to benefit others. End of story. Now, other people, there are a lot of people that have different attitudes, but that's the Buddhist perspective. Purpose of life is to be a benefit to others. And in the process, we benefit ourselves. That's like a byproduct. Kind of cool. So let's dedicate the merits. You want to do the dedication verses? So, first of all, you spend a moment and think about what you learn, and then before we just ramble off a bunch of words, I'd like for you to think about what you've learned and what this class, how are you going to use the information that you got in this class to going forward in your life?
It's page 246 in the Gold Prayer Book.
So Lama Zopa, of course I'm not Lama Zopa, but Lama Zopa would do like extensive dedication, go on for hours, but I think we'll just go on for a couple of minutes. But just, again, we talked about some things that most people, don't think are important, or maybe they do and they don't do. They are keeping it to themselves, But that's something that we really, we try to talk about it and think about it and discuss it and try to deepen our understanding of it so that it literally becomes who we are little by little. So it maybe takes many lifetimes to become a bodhisattva, but we're never going to give up as much as we can. We want to nurture these seeds, and we want to dedicate our prayers to the long life of our holy teachers. Most people in their lives never ever get to meet what I would call a holy being, somebody who really walks the talk, when it comes to spiritual practice. And we have met holy beings at Kadampa Center on many occasions. We have invited and had, amazing holy beings to come here, and we have them here that live here as well. So we have a special situation. We need to rejoice in the opportunities that we've had and to dedicate the merit so that for their long lives and for us, also for us to realize the words, the meaning of the words in our heart and mind so that we can continue to be a contribution. So we'll do the dedication verses. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of a little, with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and there be people, things. Miseries of the world. Amen. Okay, great job. Thank you for, I want to acknowledge everybody for taking a night out a week. You could have been, playing video games or watching TV or binging Netflix or doing a lot of things. But you decided to come here and be part of this class and support each other. So, nobody shows up, I leave because I got nobody to teach. Although I've been known to talk to myself at times. But so thank you for those of you who've, and both online as well, those of you who've made the effort to participate in this class, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'd like to see you in real time sometime as well. But anyway, everybody's presence makes a difference. This is what spiritual community is about. And it's, they don't say part of the three jewels is Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's the spiritual community. So important. So we're the Sangha. We support each other, not only with our words and offerings to the center, because the center needs to keep the lights on, but also with our presence. Just being here is big contribution to the center, and thank you for that. So
Thank you, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
And we'll see everyone back August 4th, is what I said, I think, for transforming problems. 5th. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, everyone, have a good few weeks. We'll see you around. There are lots of things happening and coming up. Tomorrow is Chokur Duchen, and Geshe Sangpo will be here in the evening leading prayers and practices for that special holy day, which represents the Buddha's first teaching, which was the Four Noble Truths. So come on back. All right, good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.